3, 2, 1. Hello everyone, this is the Watchman, Greg Bryant over the microphone, and we welcome you once again to another episode of JazzWatch, where we stay on guard and stay on watch for the active ear. Want to remind you before we get too far into things, you can catch us several places, of course. Download us and subscribe to us via iTunes. We're also over on Stitcher. Thank the very fine folks over there for naming JazzWatch one of the top 5 music podcasts of 2013 towards the end of last year. Also, Facebook.com/JazzWatch, YouTube.com/GBJazzWatch, Twitter.com/GBJazzWatch, and our mother site is JazzWatch.wordpress.com. Well, it's been a while since I've been in front of the microphone. A lot of things have been going on inside and outside of the music, but it is again my privilege to come before you once again. Where to start? One thing is for certain. The 75th anniversary of Blue Note Records is underway, and they'll be culminating, I believe, with a live performance at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. on Sunday, May the 11th. Blue Note past and present. I've looked it over a little bit and seen on the bill Norah Jones, Jason Moran, Wayne Shorter, Dr. Lonnie Smith, a lot of the roster that is represented all in one place there. That's going to be something of a concert. And as also earlier this year, we got word that the Blue Note president, Don Was, is reissuing several gems throughout the Blue Note vaults, classics, and underappreciated gems as well. That campaign starting once a month from now throughout the end of November 2015. Several titles getting their reissue on vinyl. This is a vinyl reissue series. Very, very unique. This will be something. And there was a recent article in the New York Times, which jazz greats were left off of the Blue Note 100. Of course, 100 classic titles, not just from the golden age, but also through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, select titles chosen by Blue Note president Don Was. And one of the names that was sort of, I guess, underrepresented, coming in under some scrutiny, was the great saxophonist Stanley Turrentine, as well as saxophonist Sam Rivers, two gentlemen greatly appreciated during their lifetimes, as well as now, and their classic catalogs getting reissued throughout the years. But I do believe the fine folks there at the label are planning to bring out some more titles for those two titans of the tenor, as well as some other things. So you'll want to keep a close watch on that reissue series. Vinyl LPs, 100 of the top most memorable Blue Note titles being released once a month from now through the end of 2015. And one of the very special new releases that is appearing later this April, and I believe the pre-vinyl release is out now. That's the Brian Blade Fellowship, their 4th album as a unit. It's called Landmarks, and it's issued on the Blue Note label. Of course, the Brian Blade Fellowship with Mr. Blade as the leader composer on drums. It's become more of a collective these days, but Brian, of course, a crucial part in that ensemble. Chris Thomas, the bassist, also the saxophone tandem of Myron Walden and Melvin Butler, as well as pianist John Cowherd. Landmarks is the title of their new CD. It's due out April 29th. You'll want to make sure that you check that one out. The vinyl release ahead of the CD and MP3 format, that's out at the middle of this month, April 15th. So you want to check that out. The Brian Blade Fellowship's Landmarks. Also, in other new music news, the trio of Larry Goldings, Peter Bernstein, and Bill Stewart, they're at it again right now on tour in Europe. They've got a new one on the Pirouette label. That label sometimes flies under the radar here in the States, but they've got some serious titles. This brand new one from the trio, Ramshackle Serenade, due out April 25th. You'll want to check that out. Some new compositions represented in this collection, as well as some new arrangements. This is one to watch. These guys are definitely putting their stamp, and have been for the past 20 years, on the guitar, organ, and drums sound. Very, very unique language they've developed and rapport over the years. And this is their latest offering, following up from 2 years ago, the acclaimed Live at Smalls CD issued under guitarist Peter Bernstein's name. Larry Goldings, Peter Bernstein, and Bill Stewart, Ramshackle Serenade, due out April 25th on Pirouette. Let's take a listen to a brief tune from this, a brief clip of a tune dedicated to Max Roach. This one, the lead-off cut. It's called Roach. That's called Roach, a little snippet from the forthcoming Ramshackle Serenade. Larry Goldings at the organ, Peter Bernstein on guitar, Bill Stewart on drums. That one was getting greasy already. And yeah, that one's going to be one to get. Make sure you check it out. It's on Pirouette records and CDs. Also from the classic stacks of the Columbia Vaults. This one anticipated for several months. The Miles Davis Bootleg Series, Volume 3 of that, Live at Fillmore, June 1970. That's the Miles Davis Band, taped live at Fillmore East from that year. The band at that time consisting of Steve Grossman on saxophones, Ayrton Mortiera on percussion, the great Jack DeJohnette was in the drum chair, Dave Holland on acoustic and electric basses, and the keyboard tandem of Chick Corea on Fender Rhodes, and the newest of the band, Keith Jarrett, there on Yamaha electric organ. It was quite a sound for Miles, who of course leads things on trumpet, and as you can tell and compare, from night to night, I believe Wednesday through Saturday, every note, every single utterance of this ensemble captured and preserved and now issued in total for the first time ever. Miles was interviewed shortly after those concerts, and his remark after listening to the playbacks was that the public needed to hear every note, needed to hear all of it. He was thoroughly and clearly excited by this lineup. Of course, you'll hear their take on the then brand new material, Bitches Brew, as well as a few titles that didn't make the light of day at the time. One of them, a Miles original, kind of a probing, spacey, eerie kind of jam called The Mask. That one, several versions, night to night, found on this CD set. It's a multi-disc set that if you're a Miles fanatic, you've got to have this one if you haven't heard it through the grapevine, so to speak, already. The Miles Davis Bootleg Series Volume 3 on Sony Columbia, live at Fillmore, June 1970. Every note from every set from this classic edition of the Miles Davis Group. Let's check out a piece of it right now. Miles Davis on JazzWatch with yours truly, Greg Bryant, the Watchman. So glad to have you here for another episode. Remember to tell your friends about us and leave us a comment as well. Click like on Facebook and all those other things. Make sure to let us know that you're digging what you're hearing. And if you have any suggestions or artists that you'd like to hear on the show, make sure to leave your feedback there as well. Of course, we're at iTunes. We're on Stitcher, twitter.com/gbjazzwatch, facebook.com/jazzwatch, and our mother site, of course, is jazzwatch.wordpress.com. Want to shift gears now and go into an interview. We had a wonderful conversation with one of the greatest drummers on the scene today, the great Nasheet Waits, drummer Nasheet Waits. Of course, he's got his project, Equality. He's a cornerstone member of Jason Moran's Bandwagon, several other ensembles that he lends his very distinctive conception of the beat to these days. Of course, he's been named by several of the top publications as Drummer of the Year, but we kind of sat down with Nasheet and shot the breeze a little bit at the beginning of the year. He talks about some projects that he's involved in, sort of kind of how he's laying out his schedule, and a bit about his unique conception of his instrument. You'll want to check this out. Our conversation up next on JazzWatch with the great drummer, Nasheet Waits.
Good deal, man. Good deal. Well, man, I guess, first of all, man, 2013, it seems like it's been like a whirlwind of activity for you, man. Just kind of to sum it up, man, what are some of the most recent, I know you were just in Europe, man, what are some of the most recent hits that you've been on over there?
Well, for the fall, pretty much, I was on tour for about 6 or 7 weeks with David Murray, Infinity Quartet, and then we did about 3 or 4 gigs with Macy Gray as at the beginning of the tour, and then the remainder of the tour was quartet. In between that, I came back to the States for a few hits. I had a hit with Tar Baby, the group with Orrin Evans, Eric Rivas, and myself. We did a trio hit at the Umbrella Festival in Chicago. That's curated by Mike Reed and whatnot. Good brother who's up there doing some positive things. Chicago has a serious scene up there and has had one for years. And we got invited to hit up there. We did that, and then I hit with Jason and Taurus in the Bandwagon at the Kennedy Center the next day. Then I flew back and finished the rest of the tour with David Murray and the quartet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was chunky, and then after that, after the last gig of the David Murray joint, then I flew from the south of France to San Francisco to hit with Ralph Alessi, another curated situation. Jason curated a week at the SF Jazz Center. And so we hit with Ralph Alessi, who had just released a recording on ECM that featured Jason, that's Jason Moran, and Drew Gress and myself. And then later on in that week, we did a project where the Bandwagon accompanies comedians, and the comedians were Marina Franklin and Faison Love at the SF Jazz Center. So that was amazing. And then the following week, we did our annual hit at the Village Vanguard for the week of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's something else. All in the tuxes, the formal.
Well, yeah, this time we didn't hit him the whole week with the tuxes. We just hit him on the weekend with the tuxes. But this is the second year we've done it in a row, and it's been a pleasure, man. The Vanguard has such a rich history. I know for a lot of people, especially myself, because I mean, the club hasn't really changed that much in the years that I've known it. And I remember my father playing at that club and me falling asleep on that couch over there that's over there by the drums and whatnot. That was my spot. And so now to be playing in there and whatnot, it's like I can look over to the left and I see a young Nasheet over there still sitting there checking his father out playing with, Richard Davis and Kenny Burrell and people of that nature. So yeah, that's always fun.
Man, that's incredible. That's incredible, and that's actually a great segue, man. A lot of people actually don't know the exact story of how you started, but it was really cool. You shared with me a few months ago when we hung out. There was no serious pressure to be a drummer, but you definitely had the influence of your father in teaching you. You need to know something about this music. You need to know this music's history. Isn't that right?
Yeah, definitely. He didn't force me to play the drums per se, and didn't force me. I took that upon myself. I just had a love for it. Every or most I'll say most boys want to emulate their fathers, and when I saw him playing drums, I mean, he always looked like he was having such a good time. One, and two, he sounded so amazing. I was like, oh man, this is this is something and as a child I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I just knew that I liked music. I was like, I'm going to be either playing center field for the New York Yankees, or I'm going to be following my father's footsteps. And but he was definitely very once you become like a teenager and so forth, I found myself listening to a lot of different kinds of music, and he was very, very, strong with the message that I needed to be informed about the culture, regardless of whether I was going to play or not. That was his thing. He was like, "You're going to listen to some jazz, living in this house." that was his message. And now that I'm thinking about it, it was more in reference to what that means and what the art form means in a cultural sense, in terms of the historical sense, and what that has to do with in terms of knowing who you are and where you came from as far as Black Americans are concerned.
Yeah,
that was really where he was, where the emphasis was coming from. That's where he was coming from. He was like, I don't want you to forget that and just get completely consumed in popular music and whatnot. That's cool if you can go ahead and do that, but you need to have a frame of reference for that.
For sure, for sure. I think that's definitely a message that a lot of this current generation still needs, and it's one of the things too that I marvel about for the Tar Baby group as well as the Bandwagon, which you've been associated with for so many years, is that importance of connecting to historical things, but also current and present things. And I guess too, I know a lot of people, want to know about sort of the inner workings of the Bandwagon and so forth, man. But I guess, 10 plus years on the scene as a band, you guys must be, number one, the best of friends. And I guess I just want to know kind of how is it to be involved with individuals such as, Jason and Taurus, and to be able to develop, I guess, a language of your own, really.
Well, that band came out of it was almost like we were a collection of misfits, because we were always talking about, we played in a few bands together before the Bandwagon was before we did our first recording and did our first hits. We were in Stephon Harris's rhythm section, and then we did a tour with the New Directions. There was a contrivance of Blue Note Records. So, and that was Stephon Harris and Greg Osby and Mark Shim in the front line, and Taurus, Jason, and myself as the rhythm section. And we, got fired from Stephon's. I was the first one who got.
Oh no!
But it's all good. It's all good. There's no animosity or bitterness.
Sure.
It was just taste, and everybody had their different thing. I was, still learning, how to be sensitive to what people want. You know, you want to make people comfortable and want and still be able to express yourself creatively and whatnot. I hadn't quite figured it all out then and whatnot. I still haven't figured it out, but you know,
No, man, come on.
but you know, so it enabled us. But and then we had like, you know, I felt like we were, and then like as a quote unquote leader, Jason never really. I mean, he brought a lot of the material, but the way that he informed us on how to get inside the music, there was very, very, very little instruction. You know, it wasn't like other bands that I'm sure you've been in as well and whatnot, where it's like you feel like there's a certain finite area that you're living within and what in terms of the parameters that you can function within and being creative. And it's like, okay, this is the point right here of demarcation where now you step beyond that, then it's not going to be acceptable. And that was never the case in that band. It was always like we were always like cliff diving and whatnot, you know?
Yes.
It was never like, and that was what we wanted to do. And even now, it's like, it's always like, okay, like how can we, you know, take this far out? And then also, I mean, just during the course of a set, we'll play anything from like, you know, a Gap Band tune to like some Fats Waller renditions to like some originals from Jason Atars. It's like it could be from anybody. You know what I mean? We'll play like Andrew Hill composition. You know, it's like we want to acknowledge the greatness of all the greatness. You know, we'll play some Mahler stuff. We'll play, you know, we'll reference all types of this beauty and all types of music and whatnot. You know, and we just want to acknowledge that.
Sure, for sure.
And the rest are beautiful people as well. Like you said, I mean, not always do bands always get together, but in our particular situation, there's never any arguments or anything like that. Even if there is a disagreement, it's so mild and light that it's never. There really is never really. Everybody has an opinion. It's appreciated, and we roll like that.
Man, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. That's really awesome, man. And you guys have developed, like I said, quite a canon in your recorded work, and I'm sure it's stuff that hasn't been, you know, fully documented on record. So many things you said in that last statement, man, but I guess the next logical quality for fans of that band, will you guys release anything in 2014? Have you guys been working on anything next?
I think we did like Jason's been working on this Fats Waller dance project with Michelle and Dege cello and some horn players, and had I think Taurus plays bass on, he plays electric on some of it. This brother, bad drummer, plays with I can't recall his name right now. Really, really bad. Plays. He's been doing the live concerts with them. I played on we did a couple of renditions of the Fats Waller stuff with Trio. I'm not exactly sure what is going to be used on the recording, but I think that recording is going to come out sometime this year. So I think that's going to come out. I don't know when the next bandwagon thing is going to come out. We have, like you said, we have so much stuff in the you know, like so many projects that could be come out. I'm sure if Jay wanted to, we could release something every 6 months and whatnot, just for the material that you said hasn't been recorded that could be fresh.
Yeah.
But everybody's so busy too. You know, Jay is busy with, you know, being the Kennedy Center, the artistic director at the Kennedy Center. He got twins. You know, everybody got families and everybody's moving around. So it's difficult to really, you know, you want to, you know, it'd be timely. Hopefully, we'll have the time to do all of that stuff in the future.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. And like I say, I'll share.
Charles Haynes, that's the brother's name. Charles Haynes.
Charles Haynes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bad drummer, play with Mariah Carey and Erykah Badu, you know, all them people and whatnot.
Yeah.
Bad cat.
No, that's real. That's real, man. Man, I just, you know, you were talking about, you know, you jokingly use the word, you know, misfits and so forth, but, you know, I don't see that way at all. I mean, to come in and just really, you know, naturally it probably was a period of unrest on the scene, you know, when players like yourself came through, you know, in the middle 90s, late 90s, because it was a totally different conception and energy, you know, of how to swing and how to groove and how to create texture and colors and so forth. Man, drummer-wise, if you had to, I guess, musical and otherwise, list some of your predominant influences, a lot of cats want to know, how does Waits really put it together? Because there seems to be, like, definitely the cerebral content, but there's a lot of heart and soul in what you play, man. Kind of what do you think about conceptually, man, when you attack the kidder? Kind of what has moved you from, it's probably a big question, but your earlier development to now?
Well, I mean, first and foremostly, my primary influence was my father. And he, even though he never forced me to, and I never really took lessons from him, but he never really forced me, like I said, really forced me to practice the drums. If I ever had a question, he was more than willing to answer and share his knowledge with me. I always think now how I would love to be able to sit down with him. I had a dream with him the other night and whatnot, and it's weird in my dreams. I'm never asking him anything about music. We're just different scenarios and whatnot. I wish I could get some information from him, like, straight fundamental information. I run across students of his all the time. Almost every gig I do, somebody that he took lessons with him or that he performed with, or an audience member, or somebody who was who liked his work and whatever. And he was like he gave me, I remember one of the earliest lessons he gave me, we had a play in my preschool.
Oh.
And we made these masks, right? Two situations all related to school. We made these masks. And this is just like some fundamental shit, but, but this is where I'll just share this with you. We all made these masks, right? And mine broke, fell apart. And I was crushed, and I ran into my mother and whatnot and cried and whatnot, because my mask fell off. And then all these other kids' masks fell off, but they continued to play, right? And by that time, I was so ashamed and whatnot, that I just felt stupid. I came home, my mother told my father. My father was like, man, regardless what happens, the show must go on. It's rarely going to be a perfect situation. If you're going to be a performer and whatnot, and then just in life, rarely, how that stuff is in life. Rarely do things shape up the way you want it to be. You got to be able to improvise and kind of roll with the punches. And another time, I remember I was in elementary school. I was playing a little concert, and I was kind of joking around and playing games on the drums. And he was like, and I remember after the concert, all the kids, because I could play because I grew up playing around my pops and stuff like that. So I had a cursory knowledge of the drums and stuff. And they were, my friends were like, oh, Nasheet, that was great. And my father was like, look, don't ever take the drums for granted. He was like, always have a certain level of respect for the instrument. Now, I was 10 years old. And he was talking to me like a grown man, but that lesson stayed with me. So now in terms of like concept, I mean, so he had a very certain, and then my other teachers too, they employed the same type of spirit. I only studied with Michael Carvin. He was my only drum teacher. Max Roach was a mentor. Dr. Fred King was a mentor. These were people that I was able to be around. I used to set up Max's drums. I got a chance to play in Boom, the percussion ensemble with himself and Roy Brooks and Joe Chambers and, like I said, Dr. King and Warren Smith and all these great musicians. And they have like the highest level of integrity and musicianship, And like you said, there was definitely a cerebral nature, but then there was also like in Boom, you couldn't read no music. There was never any music, regardless what they were playing. Never no music stands on the stage and shit. So they were like, you need to be able to internalize all that information. So I mean, I have so many favorites, man. I mean, from Baby Dodds to Kenny Clark to Billy Higgins to Tony Williams to Elvin Jones to Ed Blackwell to I could go on naming people, to Eric McPherson to to people people are my a constant inspiration to me when I hear them grace their instrument.
Man,
if
wow.
I could answer the question, I might have got caught up in the answer.
No, man, that was great.
and not even answered the question. I'm sorry if I got long-winded.
That
I don't
was
know if
that was
I
incredible.
anything necessarily. I think I'm trying not to think. You know, I think that's what I'm
Sure.
trying basically to do is to not think as much as possible, and then just try to be a vessel and try to let the information flow through me. That's when it's the least and try to stay out of the way of the creativity. How
Yeah,
when you have a musician and when you play the music and you thinking real hard about the stuff, that's when it's the most challenging. When you just kind of end flowing, that's when the beauty is really for me at least, that's when the beauty is really expressed.
for sure. For sure, Nasheet. Man, and two, it's kind of weird, kind of going into, now you're a father, a family man, and have been on the scene for, 20 plus years now. You're starting to be regarded as, and the musicians in your generation as, the statesman, I guess in general, the cats that you see coming up behind you, this new generation of jazzers, what are some things that you're liking that you see, and maybe what are some things that you feel can be improved upon?
Man, I like. I mean, you always hear. I would hate to be one of those people who would be like, man, the younger cats ain't playing nothing. The cats ain't doing
Hmm.
anything new, because I really don't feel that way. I feel like there's always a fresh crop of very respectful, very informed young musicians that have a lot together. Like, now, you know, like to play in 13 and a half and one, and it's almost like playing in three or something like that. And when the cats are coming up in the music now where, rhythmically and harmonically speaking and compositionally speaking, people it's advanced, and we just did a recording a few weeks ago with Logan Richardson, and he's one of those people and whatnot. Logan had
Yeah.
he had Harish Raghavan and Jason Moran and Pat Metheny and myself on the recording, and
Wow.
and almost
Wow.
every tune had like some twists and turns in it where you could not really lay in there. But the way he was thinking about it, he was like, "Nah, man, this shit is like four to me." So we were all trying to feel it. We were all trying to feel it like that, because I mean that's where the music is going. I mean, and there's so many people out here that are playing. Like Marcus Gilmore and Damian Reed and some of these younger brothers. Man, they sound great. They sound
Hmm.
great, man. They really do, and they're very humble to the music. And very respectful and are informed about it. It
Yeah.
ain't like cats are just out here like, oh, lollygagging and whatnot. These cats are well read individuals, not just in the music, but about life. Cats,
Yeah.
and that's important. There's so much information out here. You can't be aware of all of it, but to have a thirst and a desire to be aware of all of it is what it takes, really.
For sure, man. Man, just two more questions, man. I appreciate you again for hanging out with me. The first one, as a native New Yorker that you are, I'd be interested to see and get your take on, I guess, how global jazz has become. Even when, I was a little kid and first getting into jazz, it seemed like, New York is the center. If you do anything in jazz, that's where you have to be. That's where you need to be. And still, to a certain extent, maybe that's the case. But, as a global traveler that you are, you've seen some different pockets and different scenes. How important or how serious does one need to be to make their career on the East Coast if they play creative improvisational music?
Pretty serious, man, because the people are, I mean, it's like anywhere else. I guess actually it's not like anywhere else, but it's like, I think you have to have that same mentality anywhere, regardless where you are in terms of your level of commitment to excellence. You know, it's probably, just in terms of the fact that there are so many people playing at a high level in New York City, it puts you on your toes even more, because you'll go to hear somebody and be like, oh, wait a minute, hold on, let me really, okay, wait a minute, I wasn't thinking about it coming at like this. You go and hear something, I mean, you can hear a couple of people a night that are really taking care of business, that it makes you be on your toes in order to be able to work, you know, in order to be able to make a living and whatnot, you got to be on top of your game. And I think that's just the nature of New York. It's almost like overcrowding. It's definitely overcrowded, just in terms of the population and the amount of people in this these square miles, and when it's not that large in terms of the amount of people that live here, and there's so much creativity and art going on, and the jazz music and this music is flourishing here, and what it will continue to, because that's like where people come to go ahead and cut their teeth, and once they. But you don't necessarily have to be here because, like you said, it has become so global. I mean, you could do your thing anywhere really, and still be able to be able to. Let me put it like this: Von Freeman. I don't think Von Freeman ever came to New York City, or if he did, he came for a minute and then he went back to Chicago to take care of his mother. Von Freeman was one of the baddest tenor players anywhere for as long as he was living.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right.
He came to New York City for a while, but then he spent the majority of his time in Florida teaching. Ain't nobody really playing more saxophone than Bunky Green. So I mean, that all depends. That all depends what you want to do. I mean, not everybody is and it's also challenging. It's also challenging to live here in the city. It's very expensive. Unless you come in, and like the gigs aren't as plentiful as, and when I'm talking about the gigs, I'm talking about like a gig where you're going to be traveling around doing the stuff that you might want to do aren't quite as plentiful. You can come here and work and do gigs like, there's a place to play. There's hundreds of places to play every night. And then when I say places, I mean like it could be a restaurant, it could be such and such. I'm not exactly sure if that's what everybody would want to do coming to move here, but I know I did it for quite some time. I played any gig that I could play and whatnot.
Sure.
And enjoyed it and learned a lot from it,
For sure, man. For sure. And I guess looking forward to 2014, well, really in the past, 5 or 6 years, you've branched out when time has afforded you to do your own project, the Nasheet Waits Equality. Some very, very interesting compositions, and you've had, a couple of different combinations in there. But can we expect more from Equality? And are you working on anything under your own banner?
Yeah. I'm trying to. Actually, I'm gonna go into the studio in the next week and do some stuff. I did some stuff. It might have been almost a year ago. I did a couple of cuts with Logan Richardson and Mark Elias on bass and Craig Taborn on piano, and I'm going to do a couple of more with VJ Iyer and Mark Elias and Logan, and then we're going to also. I did a tour earlier, or Equality did a tour earlier this year, and I think maybe March or April, and we had James Hurt and Taurus on bass and Logan. So I'm going to do something with that permutation of the group as well. And just, it's all about good music. I mean, the reason that I remember originating that group was just because I felt that there needed to be, it was almost in reflection or can be along the same lines of what my father was talking about, like culturally talking. I was like, I thought that there was maybe a gap, since the majority of the work that I do is overseas in Europe. There seems to be an attitude now, not only over there but in different places, where like certain elements of the music aren't being respected as much as I think they should be. And I was like, I want to be somebody who can still, pardon me, man, can still, I mean, anytime I'm on the bandstand, that's I'm coming from that area. But I want to be able to also, when I'm playing with Jason, it's coming from that area. When I'm playing with Tarbier, it's coming from that focus point. So I was like, I want to be able to put anything out there, and I don't have any ownership really either, even though it's like I don't really have like a my band, my thing, type of attitude of one of this all collective as far as I'm concerned. But, it's your band because you're booking the gigs or whatever, you're organizing the hit. But once you hit the bandstand, that's all. It's really, there's a high level of equality. So that was the reason that I wanted to formulate that band was to make sure that that cultural essence isn't going to be lost. You know, if I could be a voice, it's going to come from me and those other brothers that I talked about all feel the same way. You know, and that's important. You know, even though there are some young people who are very aware, there are some young people who aren't aware. You know, quite as much as they should be. And I'm going to definitely be a voice of those people who came before me, who are like, look, and it wasn't like the people who came before me, they weren't like, do it like I did it. They were the exact opposite. They were like, man, find your own voice, and were very encouraging. They were like, man, do your thing. You know, when I say your thing, like your interpretation of what's happening, you know, put yourself into the music. It wasn't like we don't need any replications and whatnot of what came before. You want to keep the music going forward, but at the same time, there are those elements. There are those key elements, and this is like, you know, I feel like I learned those lessons from, like, you know, African griots and whatnot. You know what I mean? All those people who I feel blessed and who were able to impart that information to me. You know, Andrew Hill and Max and, you know, Michael Carvin, Billy Hart, and all these kinds of people. They don't give that information to everybody. So when you get that information, you have to. It's your duty to impart that information to people who you feel are worthy as well.
Nasheet Waits, we thank him so very much for hanging out with us earlier this year for JazzWatch. Yours truly, Greg Bryant, over the microphone, the Watchman, your friendly neighborhood jazz crusader. We'll be back real soon. Make sure to download us to your portable device via iTunes. Leave a comment there if you dug the show or if you've got any suggestions. We'd love to hear from you. Check us out on Stitcher as well. Big shout out to the folks there for naming us one of their 5 best music podcasts of 2013. You can also catch us on youtube.com/gbjazzwatch, facebook.com/jazzwatch, twitter.com/gbjazzwatch, and our mother site is at jazzwatch.wordpress.com. Greg Bryant here. We'll catch you real soon. And remember, we're on the watch for the active ear.